Well, good morning. Doing a little impromptu live stream here on our Facebook page, Lockwood College Prep. My name's Andy Lockwood. Good morning. I had a blinding flash of the obvious, maybe, this morning because I was thinking about the presentation that I did last night in our workshop in our office in Glen Head, and which we do almost every week. We have an office in Glen Head. We have a new office in Boca Raton. I'll actually be down there for 2 weeks. But other than that's a little unusual. Other than that, we do these workshops almost every week. And the format of the workshops is pretty simple and convenient for me, which is I just take questions from everyone. I write them down on the whiteboard that I have there. It's very high tech. It's like a PowerPoint except analog. And then I just answer the questions. And it's very easy for me because I don't have to go through a presentation, which I can do. But I think the flaw with the presentation idea is that it's really based on what I think people should know. And I've been a college advisor for more than 25 years. So I kind of, at this point, I better get it. I should understand the questions that are percolating through your skull. But when I do it the way I just described, when I abandoned my formal presentation and I just go for the Q&A, it's I think it's much more valuable for people who show up because they get their questions answered instead of listening to what I think they should hear. Which I still try to mix that in. If they don't ask me something, I will, or if they don't ask me exactly that question that I think they should ask, then of course I'll expand on it. But last night was no exception. I got a bunch of really good questions. So today's Thursday. I thought that I would just kind of go through some of the questions I got, because I know that many of the people do not, who follow us or who are getting to know us have these questions, but they didn't attend last night because we had, I think it was about 22, 23 people last night, which was nice. So I'm going to go through these here. And if you are watching this with me live, you can pop in your questions. You can say hello. Let me just see who is with us. I should have teed this up earlier, but I told you this was a little impromptu, as the French say. So let's see here. Good morning to Claire and Ramesh and everyone else whose names I can't see. So feel free to say hi, of course, but pop in your questions. So one of the big questions last night that I actually get a lot. So I figured it'd be worth republishing the day after today here, Thursday, is how do you get money for college if you make a high income, or if you think you make a high income? And the short answer, which I'm only going to do the short answer, is that there is far more money in the system, in the college endowments out there for high income families than there is for low income families. And that is not particularly politically correct, right? Not at all, not even in particularly, if that's a word. So the reason for that is not that colleges are screwing low income families or anything kind of nefarious like that. It's really more about that colleges just can't afford, in general, they can't afford to give out full rides to everyone who needs it, unless you're talking about a few elite schools like some Ivy Leagues and another very, very heavily endowed colleges. So the average tuition discount at a private college, private schools tend to have the higher sticker prices. The average tuition discount is something like 58.2%, somewhere around there, nationally, average, according to the National Association of Collegiate Business Officers. And that discounting rate has gone up pretty much every year that I know about, at least 10, 12, probably longer years. As college tuitions increase, so too do the discounting. So how do you get your hands on that money if you're not going to qualify for financial aid? So in this case, when I say financial aid, I'm talking specifically about filling out a FAFSA or a CSS profile or some other financial aid application. And let's say you make $350,000. You're probably not, unless there's some other extenuating circumstances, you're not going to qualify for what they call need-based, NEED, not KNEAD or something else. And that is totally fine because there's more non-need-based money out there. Now, that doesn't mean that every school is going to give you merit aid, because a lot of the, most of the elite schools, Ivies and near Ivy colleges, don't give out. Well, they say they don't give out merit aid, but the vast majority of the rest of the colleges in the country, that's a few thousand, do give out merit aid. And the way you get merit aid is, number one, by identifying the colleges that are generous. And number two, and this gets overlooked all the time by anyone who talks about this, like your guidance counselor, school counselor, whatever, identifying those generous colleges that will be generous to your kid. Two different things, two different elements you've got to fulfill. So generous colleges tend to be private colleges, and they tend to be a tier and a half down from the elite schools, because their business model forces them to offer money to entice people who can pay full with scholarships of 20% off, 30% off, maybe more. That's the business model, because they, like I said before, they can't afford just to write a check for everyone. So if you are an affluent family, meaning with a 6-figure or 7-figure income or more, your chances of getting a merit aid scholarship are actually greater than if you were a low income family. I already mentioned this was politically incorrect. I always point out at our workshops that it's a free workshop, right? Same thing with these our posts on Facebook. We're not charging for them, so they're free yet non-refundable at the same time. And I'm just giving you my experiences. Other people have different experiences. It's up to you to judge for yourself. But that's really the gist of it, is that colleges need affluent families. That's because they can't afford to give everyone a full ride that they feel deserves one. So what they do is they have these, at least to me, complicated algorithms. They have enrollment consultants. They figure out how much they need to offer the various families that are applying, that they want to rope in as customers, so or paying students, paying tuition, so that they are able to get them over the fence and to enroll. So it's not done haphazardly at all. It's done by analyzing, AI, also crunching all the big tech, big data numbers that get thrown into the hopper every year when colleges solicit applications. And it works out well, for the colleges, because they get to collect the 80% or the 70% balance of whatever their sticker price is. And then on top of that, the parents feel like they got a deal. The kids get a little bragging rights. Hey, I got this full ride scholarship, even though those are very few and far between. Of course, mom and dad can also do the bragging at the next barbecue or other social gathering. So there's some psychology involved too. It's not just a numbers thing. That is, I guess, the under-discussed way to get money for college if you are an affluent family, or you show a high income and you're not going to qualify for need-based aid. That's a whole nother discussion, whether you qualify or not. But my point here is that if you don't qualify for need-based aid, it's far from game over. You still have the ability to get money for college. So applying to generous schools, which tend to be, like I said, the tier and a half-ish down from Ivy League schools. And then the second element was colleges that are likely to be generous to your kid. So how do you figure that out? You've got to look at the stats. Look at last year's kids. Look at the median SAT or ACT. Look at the median GPA. And if your child is at or above, preferably above that, if they're in the top, 20%, 25% of that cohort that you're looking at, then you have a very good shot at getting money. If the kid is not in that upper echelon, in other words, has to beg, borrow, and steal, scratch and claw, etc., to get in, then that's that doesn't bode well for your ability to get aid. Some public universities give merit aid also, and some don't. So some of the stingy ones that are out there are Penn State doesn't really give much money at all, hardly ever. We've seen exceptions, but I'm just giving you sort of general rules. University of Maryland, not a lot of money there. University of Michigan very rarely gives money. I can tell you that professionally as well as personally. Her daughter just graduated there a few months ago. But then there's some other state schools that do give money, like University of Vermont gives money, UMass, UConn, Delaware, Ohio State. Play schools that are state universities do give merit aid to get affluent families to come so they can collect the balance. So that is one of the first answers to one of the big questions here. Let me see who is with us. And if you guys have any questions, hello to Christine. Hi. And Clara. Didn't know impromptu was a French origin. Well, I think it is. I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know. And hi, Carolyn. Impromptu. No, I don't. Yeah, it sounds French to me, but I'm a college advisor. What the heck do I know? I'm not a linguist. I just play on live streams. Okay. We had a whole nother discussion last night in terms of when you're applying to college and they're looking at your college application. What are they actually looking at? What does it, in other words, what does it take to get into a top college or most competitive colleges, meaning any school that admits 30-40% or better. So just quickly, I break things up into sort of two categories. 60% is academic and 40% is non-academic. Now that is not just something I pulled out of my head. That estimate comes from, and he may be watching actually. Sometimes he stalks me on Facebook here. My business partner, his name is Don Betterton. He was very heavily involved with the admissions committee at Princeton for 3 decades. And he's said certain offhand things to me over the years, and that's one of the ones that stuck. So approximately 60% is 3 things. It's your GPA, it's your SAT or ACT score. Yeah, even in today's test optional environment, which is not as strongly test optional as it was a couple years ago, and rigor, meaning strength of your schedule. So really quick, because I covered it in depth last night, and if you ever want to come to another workshop, you can just let me know in the chat, and we'll get you the sign up page. So you'll hear it again. But 60% means GPA, which is important, but it's not nearly as important as it used to be because of rampant grade inflation. So one of the things I say all the time is, like, the last time I met with a C student was 2015, because yesterday's C student is today's 84 average kid. So everyone knows this. College admissions officers know this. And that's a big reason why the standardized test scores have roared back in terms of how they're viewed by admissions officers much more favorably, because even though they're not perfect, they are flawed. I'm not trying to say that they're perfect, but they are better indicators of how well a prospective student will do in college. There's a much tighter correlation between SAT and ACT versus college GPA. That's just the way it is. It's not politically correct. It's free live stream, etc. Same joke. So GPA is not as important. SAT and ACT standardized test scores are very important, just like I said. And yeah, you can still apply test optional, but let me draw this distinction for you. Captain Obvious thing here, I think, to many of you. Applying test optional is different than getting in test optional. So if you apply test optional and you don't reveal your SAT or ACT score, you are removing a key element from the discussion. Does that mean it's game over, that you won't get in? No, because there are many other factors that admissions officers look at. It could be upwards of 20 factors that they actually look at. But if you're pulling out one of the biggies, then the rest of your application needs to be a lot stronger in all the different areas. So right now I'm just talking about the academic, GPA, test scores, and the third one, and this is a problem for a lot of kids who don't meet with their guidance counselors. By the way, I guess the term is school counselor now. Sometimes I get ripped by counselors who say things like, "It's school counselor. It's not guidance counselor. That's so 80s." Okay, that may be what you guys call it, but what parents call it might be something different. And I'm just gonna, I'm gonna occasionally use the right term, but don't get mad at me, please. Or you can get mad at me. It's okay. I'll be fine either way. Don't worry about this guy, okay? So if you don't meet with your what's it called until 11th grade, and that's when you discover, if you even have this analysis done, which is debatable, but if that's when you discover that, for the colleges that you're looking at, and let's say you're gunning for some elite type schools, either Ivies, near Ivies, maybe step down. If that's when you discover that you haven't taken enough AP classes to be competitive with the kids who get admitted to those schools over the years, then you're kind of SOL, because maybe you would have taken an extra AP class in 10th grade. Many high schools don't offer APs to 10th graders. Some offer one. Some high schools offer two. If you're sitting down with your guidance counselor to have that college meeting in 11th grade, and it's the second half of 11th grade, of course, you've already had one semester, or at least part of one semester of 11th grade. If that's when you find out at that college meeting that you should have taken 5 APs instead of 3, then it's a problem. So at most schools, and I'm referring to public high schools as well as private high schools, that meeting with the counselor is too late. So if you're watching this, or you have friends who are going through this, my message is, it's not that you have to run out and hire a private advisor just because of this, okay? My message is that you need to take charge of everything. Don't just assume that they're going to give you all this information proactively. In their defense, in these school counselors' defenses, they have many other things that they're dealing with. They're overwhelmed. They have 400 kids to 1, 500 kids to 1 ratios at a lot of public schools. The ratios are better at the private schools, but they're just busy with other stuff, older kids maybe. So you have to recognize that you don't know what you don't know. And a good thing to do would be to say, look, I saw that, we had like 5 kids get into Ivy League schools, or whatever echelon you're thinking about for your kid, or your kid's thinking about. And I want to know, Mr. or Mrs. School Counselor, what did, without violating any confidences, what did their records look like? Not just their academic, but also their extracurriculars. What types of things did they accomplish? And, your counselor may have a general idea, they may have no idea, or they may be a little bit more helpful than that, so that you can, and your child can, reverse engineer their way in to what it takes to at least put together a competitive application for those types of schools. Don't do that in the second half of 11th grade. You have to think about that earlier. So in terms of what it takes, 60% is academic, those 3 factors, GPA, standardized tests, and rigor. And then 40% is a combination of stuff that's out of your control, non-politically correct things like race and ethnicity. And yeah, I understand that the Supreme Court outlawed affirmative action in college admissions, but that didn't preclude colleges from asking supplemental essay questions designed to get out your lived experiences. First time I used that phrase this year. And what community are you from, and things like that. So in that 40%, you've got stuff like, your zip code is something that's out of your control. Whether your parents went to college or not is out of your control. These are all things that admissions officers look at. They're not going to show up on Naviance or whatever, or Score or Squire or whatever it's called, whatever your high school uses for software. But then there's some key things that do count. That are in your control, and they count in that 40%. So what do I mean by that? Extracurricular activities is an obvious one. There are atypical extracurriculars and there are typical extracurriculars. Now, this is going to be another Captain Obvious statement, but I feel like it's worth me spitting out here. If all your kid has are typical activities, in other words, if the best thing you can say, he or she could say, is she made it into National Honor Society, joining the top 75% elite portion of your class, National Honor Society is a participation trophy. If you have any honor societies on your bumper sticker, get them off. On your bumpers as a sticker. Get it off right now. I'll wait. Okay. By the way, same thing with the ersatz or fake. My child is in the NHSHSSH. That's like a pay to play honor society. I'm sure some of you guys have that. Get that off your car too. That's just embarrassing. That's like, oh, you're elected. Just pay us $70 and you're in. You get a T-shirt too. So those are typical things that are not exemplary at all. But if you take something that you're interested in or your child's interested in, and you go deeper and then deeper again, that could be very interesting. Most of the kids that I see who get into Ivy and elite schools have at least, I'd say, 3 to 5 unbelievable or very impressive, ranging from, oh my God, I can't believe a kid did this, to just, wow, you're outstanding types of activities listed on their activity sheet, the activity section of the Common application. You get 10 spots, and close to half, sometimes more than half, are like, I was president of this. So it's great to be in a club, but it's atypical to be the president. It's okay to participate in last week's walk where everyone gets together to promote awareness of and raise money to combat or to research the causes of autism and breast cancer and colitis and moms with breast cancer and autism and colitis. Whatever you're doing, that's great, but it's not going to impress anyone that you did a walk or two. But if you form your own group, or you are really, really involved, and you can say, I was able to raise $13,000 or something like that. You just have to go deeper. Think a typical activity or something that you're interested in. It could be career related, and go deeper with that. That's what it takes to stand out. And then, of course, putting everything together, the whole application should communicate. It shouldn't be just narcissistic bragging. It should communicate what potential value it is that you could bring to that campus community. Admissions officers are looking for character. They're trying to tease that out. So here's the thing. Most kids, and I understand this, when they put together their college applications, it's very narcissistic. It's very braggadocious. I did this thing. I did that thing. I'm so great. I did this thing. I checked this box. I checked that box. Check, 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 check. I'm great. What I always try to impart on kids, and this is not universally accepted again, so not necessarily right for everyone, but my feeling about this, and I tell this to every kid that we work with, I would say, Justin, don't think of yourself as just Justin applying to college. These colleges are businesses. They are looking at you like a product. There could be 50,000 other kids who have the same grades and the same scores and the same basic other attributes as you. You have to explain to them, and by the way, this is not a written question on the Common application. I call it the invisible question. Why should we take you compared to these other 50,000 kids? Why? You've got to communicate that. So you're not Justin applying to college. You're the marketer of Justin applying to college. there's a difference. It may seem like a nuance, but I don't think it's too nuanced. The difference is, instead of narcissistically bragging about how great you are, what a marketer would do, and I consider myself a marketer in a college advisor's body. Creepy. I'm going to have to call her back. Not now, Janine. Okay. What a marketer does is think about what their audience wants and then serve it up to them. So it's not a me focus, it's a them focus. That's the difference. So first you have to figure out what admissions officers are looking for. That's not too hard because 99% of colleges want the same thing, but a lot of it is character and value. Here's my final phrase I want to leave you with. Actually, I think this is a good title. So the entire application, the letters of recommendation, the essays, yeah, all the activities that you do, letters of recommendation, you name it, there should be a relatively clear, maybe not to you, but to admissions officers, a clear thread of continuity that runs through the entire application that communicates that value. Now, note, I am not saying that the application is a bunch of puzzle pieces. You don't have to, everything doesn't have to gear toward your 16-year-old child's decision to go into ophthalmology, which of course that's never going to change because every 16-year-old knows what they want to do with the rest of their life, right? Same with every 50-year-old. But not so it should keep, the thread of continuity should run through the entire application and communicate that value. I think you guys can let me know if this is a good idea or not. If I'm doing these workshops on Wednesdays, I can come on Thursdays and talk about the latest questions I'm getting. I'm gonna call it the Thursday thread. That's a just so I can call it something. Just dawned on me. You're seeing my dumb creativity in real time here. Any questions? So yes, Carolyn from Virginia. Daniel, hey. Daniel says impromptu comes from Latin. Well, French is a Romance language, so come on. Carolyn, your 12-year-old son, Michael, just happens to be home sick today. Well, I hope this helped him get to sleep and rest up. Thread of continuity, Christine. Yeah, cool. All right. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that concludes this experiment. So we got a fair amount of people on. So I guess I'll keep doing this until people tell me they don't want to hear it anymore. But I thought it'd be good. I have a lot more questions that I answered last night, but I don't want to keep everyone too long from whatever they're supposed to be doing throughout the day. So thanks for joining. Pearl and I are going to be on the air Monday morning, 10 a.m. from somewhere in South Florida, either at my office in Boca or where we're staying in Delray. I'm not sure. That's every Monday, College Coffee Talk. So like and subscribe so you never miss out if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching. And then, yeah, I think I can keep coming up with this extra stuff as long as it's worth doing, according to you guys, not me. All right. Have a great week. Bye-bye.